U.S. Secretary of Treasury Janet Yellen concluded talks in China this weekend, meeting with the newly appointed Communist Party chief of China's central bank. She claimed that while the talks were substantive and productive, repairing the tense relationship will not be solved overnight. For years now, the relationship between the U.S. and China has been nothing less than contentious, with some going as far as to claim that it's the new Cold War. With continued conflicts over the China-Taiwan Strait, growing economic concerns, and strong rhetoric denouncing each other's leaders, the tension doesn't appear to be easing anytime soon. Let's bring in Yale University senior fellow Stephen Roach. He penned an opinion piece for Project Syndicate, The Wrong Way to Manage U.S.-China Relations. So first, I guess, what's the right way to go about it?
Well, I think we've seen now two examples of what both sides are trying to go back to, which is the conversations without actionable consequences. And, it's starting to seem to me like this is just a return to the old approach we had, endless rounds of diplomatic discussions from time to time, punctuated by these big summits they call strategic and economic dialogues. But it's an approach that failed to prevent the conflict that you just alluded to, the trade war that's morphed into a tech war and now the early stages of a new Cold War. And, I think this is a personalized approach that reflects the chemistry between leaders, but ultimately one that is also constrained by domestic political considerations in both countries. And it failed to prevent this seismic conflict that we're now in the grips of. And I don't think it's going to succeed going forward.
It does seem that personalized diplomacy, at least for the moment, seems to have avoided getting worse, right? The fact that Yellen went there, and it seemed to me that was the goal for now, right? That things would not deteriorate further. Do you think, though, that in this current framework of this, what you called in your piece, personalized diplomacy, that there is any possibility for further progress, not just lack of backsliding?
Well, considering where we've been going, lack of backsliding is clearly an uptick. But, the goal was set largely, and it was a modest goal at best, by Presidents Biden and Xi when they met in Bali last November, when they both agreed to put a floor on the deterioration in the relationship. And so Blinken finally goes after delaying his trip because of the great balloon fiasco by 4 months, followed by Janet Yellen, and most likely, very shortly, by John Kerry. And they're putting in a floor, and I think that's good. I agree with your point. It's definitely preferable to the no-floor approach where we have been headed. But is the floor strong enough to withstand further developments as they occur? The U.S. has been telegraphing, for example, that it's going to put significant restrictions on outbound foreign direct investment into Chinese technology. And China has also very recently put restrictions on the availability of very important minerals that go into the production of semiconductors. So there's still a series of repeated blows here. And, it's dubious to me as to whether or not the floor approach is the right way to move this relationship to a more constructive position.
So with that considered, what is the best good faith concession that each of these economies, each of these countries could make that may start to strengthen or re-globalize the relationships?
Well, I think one thing that could certainly be done that would be very important is to restart military-to-military discussions. And we've had near misses, serious near misses between, excuse me, ships in the south, in the Taiwan Strait, and airplanes in the South China Sea. And yet we have two defense ministers who will not speak to one another, and the Chinese resist this because their current defense minister is now on the personal sanctions list of the United States for actions that he purportedly took in an earlier capacity before he became defense minister. If we want to make a serious gesture to restart the military discussions, take the guy off the sanctions list and let's get on with serious discussions before we have a major accident. We can do that.
So how do we fix all of this, I guess, is a short question with probably a very long answer.
Well, I'll try to be short, but I do have a long answer. I wrote in my recent book, Accidental Conflict, about a new approach I have to relationship management framed around what I call establishing a U.S.-China Secretariat, which is a full-time organization located in a neutral jurisdiction, staffed by equal complements of Chinese and American professionals who are engaged in troubleshooting, collaborative joint policy approaches, and participate in a dispute resolution mechanism. It operates full-time. It's not one that is adversely influenced by the personal egos of thin-skinned leaders who are always looking to establish better face in the position that they achieve with their adversaries. And, I have continued to stress this is a far more depersonalized, institutionalized way of managing the process of engagement than going back to the old way that failed.
Yeah, and of course here too, we're subject to things like elections, which also affects that face saving in quite a different way as well. Stephen, it's always good to get your perspective on these matters. Yale University Senior Fellow Stephen Roach, thank you.
Thank you.